How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Ruffled Rowlett, and welcome back to a brand new video, guys. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we got ourselves something interesting. We have a bunch of new rumors to talk about. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a beverage, and let's get started right off the bat. So first things first, guys, is this post right here from 4chan. Shout out to HTV, by the way, for sending this my way. But basically, it is a 4chan rumor, which I think is very nice, and it's got some stuff to say. This was posted yesterday. I totally slipped on this one. I didn't see it, actually. But basically, here's what it says, and it's a bit of a long, lengthy one, but we're going to go through all of it. So, it starts off saying Pokemon Legends AZ. I don't know why it says AZ and not ZA, but I digress. It says that it's set in Miyare City. So Miyare is basically just the other name, or I guess the Japanese name for Lumiose City. That's literally all it's like trying to say here. That's literally it, like nothing else. But yeah. So, it says it's going to be set in Lumiose City. Lumiose is explorable with an underground section that leads to a forest and mountain areas. Now, this actually sounds realistic, and I think the terrarium, and this is something, again, this is a bit of a theory of mine, but I think that the terrarium in the Indigo Disc was a test case, right? Testing out how would it work if we put, like, basically artificial, natural-looking areas inside of a Pokemon game, right? Like, how would that actually work? And I think that's what the Indigo Disc was doing, testing that leading into this game. I think that's kind of what they did there, as a little bit of a hint, but also a way to test it out and see how it would work, right? Because other Pokemon games, oftentimes, everything we explore, the locations we go to catch Pokemon, are usually naturally occurring locations, right? They're naturally occurring. But that was the first time they were like, okay, we're going to put this inside of a giant dome, right? Like in a big dome, and we're going to test and see how people feel about this. So, personally, from that regard, it actually makes total sense. Like, it totally fits. But that's pretty much what I think about that one. However, moving on, it says that it's going to lead us to forests and mountains. Now, mountain areas underground, I do wonder how that would work. I think it could be cool, though, because, again, keep in mind, this would make total sense. They based a specific location in X and Y off of the underground of actual Paris. Remember, like, Lumiose is based on Paris. That's number one. Paris, the city, has a massive tunnel system filled to the brim with these catacombs, right, that are just gigantic. They span a massive amount of space, but it doesn't end there. They actually based the Glittering Cave, I think, in Pokemon X and Y off of, and I could be again wrong about like what the cave is called, but I think it was a Glittering Cave. They actually based it off of, and I think this is something that Masuda, the actual one of the developers at Game Freak, doesn't work there anymore, but one of the main devs at Game Freak, works for the Pokemon Company now. He actually said in his blog post that he based it specifically off of the Paris catacombs. So we already have a literal connection there, a cave based on it. So would it be too crazy to assume? Because even in that cave, there's actually like mine carts. So that area, like, you know, it spans a long distance. Is it possible that's what we're going to see? Like an underground location filled to the brim with mountains, forests, etc. Like, I think it actually would work. Moving on, though, they say you start in South Boulevard, but unlock more avenues as you progress. Now, that makes sense. Again, we know this game is going to be only in Lumiose City. That's something that has been said officially. It's confirmed. There's, like, I'm not going to debate this with anyone. It's a literal thing that they have said is going to be the case. So I'm not going to debate on this actual subject, but it is 100% going to be set in the city. We know that for a fact, and it makes sense that we would unlock section by section, right? That we wouldn't just be from the get-go given access to everything. Like, that makes total sense, at least to me. Maybe I'm crazy, but at least to me that makes total sense. Moving on, though, he says you're hired under the Flair for the Future, rough translation, campaign to renovate Lumiose. So Flair for the Future. So I guess this is the same way they made, like, you know, the expedition team in Arceus connected to Team Galactic, right? And in this case, it would be Flair for the Future, right? Like a spark for the future, a group that's working to rebuild the city or do something great for it, to renovate, Lumiose, which that makes sense. I think that actually fits really well. And so far, this rumor is feeling, pretty on point. But he says also it's a rough translation, so it could be a different name, but Flair for the Future actually sounds kind of cool. Nonetheless, though, I think that makes total sense, right? Us working for, like, Team Flair doesn't seem too far-fetched. Like, also, it would make sense then to explain, like, why Team Flair existed the way it did and where it got its name from, like, actual Lysander. Like, he would just be like, yes, I got to, I'm going to take this name from the people that built the beautiful Lumiose, right? Like, something like that. Again, I don't know. Could be the case. And also, Lysander's weird. But nonetheless, though, moving on, the second thing. By completing side quests like capturing Pokemon, you can unlock new shops features, etc. So basically, completing side quests unlocks you new things. Again, similar to what we did in Legends Arceus, it doesn't again seem that different from it in a sense. Like, it seems like it pretty much follows in line with how things worked in that game. It doesn't seem like it's too far-fetched from that. But also, yeah, man, hey, new shops, new features, etc. Sounds good to me. Moving on. Kalos starters return. Okay, so he's saying that we're going to get the Kalos starters back. Can wear clothing like in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. So what he's referring to here is, if you guys don't remember this, and I'm going to actually search this up, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, Pikachu, let's see, outfit. So you actually could have your Pikachu wearing clothes just like you wore, if you guys can remember this, right? Like, you could actually wear the outfits on the Pikachu. Like, you could have like Ash Pikachu, which was crazy. You could have like Rocket Pikachu. It was just funny, okay? It was just like a cool feature. And apparently that's going to be coming back, which makes sense. Like, Paris is like the fashion capital of the world, somewhat. I think some people might say like Milan might be or something like that in Italy, but as far as I'm aware, it's like the fashion capital, okay? It's like fashion 101. And every French person's gonna hate me, but it's what the whole, like, Emily in Paris show is all about. But I know people hate that one. Nonetheless, what I'm trying to say is the following, that basically we know for a fact, right, that this is a feature that has been in the games before. There is a good connection you can make to Paris and France and everything. And what he says here is, can wear clothes like in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. All three wear ribbons showing what they were, where they were raised. Ooh, okay. Chespin is from Galar. Huh. That's a bit weird. I wouldn't expect him to say that. So Chespin from Galar, Fennekin is from Hoenn, and Greninja is from Unova. Apparently, the Galar Chestnut is a magical knight. I guess it would get a new third evolution, right? I think that's what they're hinting at. Like a brand new third evolution. At least that's like what I'm getting from this. At least based on reading it, right? So Chespin is from Galar. Fennekin from Hoenn, and Greninja is from Unova. The Galar Chestnut is a magical knight. The Hoenn Delphox is a cleric, okay, so a healer. And Unova Greninja is an aviator and flying frog. Now, okay, these don't really work for me. Like, a magical knight, okay, a knight, I get it. It fits with, like, French history. A cleric, sure, that fits with the whole, like, RPG thing, like a dungeon crawling thing. But then Greninja with the aviator flying frog, that makes no sense. It doesn't correlate to the other two whatsoever to me. It continues on, saying Mega Stones must be mastered through use of in battle or receive the blessing of Xerneas and Yveltal. Now, this is where you're losing me again. See, I get the in battle stuff, like receiving it or like actually earning it some way. That makes sense. Mastering it, that makes sense. Crafting it even would make sense. But getting a blessing from Xerneas and Yveltal, I don't know, Chief. That seems a little far-fetched to me. At least it's a little far-fetched. Let's see. This one, okay, I'm not sure if I can read that. NEGA evolution, or Mega Evolution, I guess. So, negative evolution, turns Zygarde into its minus perfect form, which, I don't know about that one, man. So, it turns Zygarde into its minus percent form. I don't know, man. That doesn't sound, again, sounds far-fetched. Each plaza is an arena ruled by a Mega Pokemon gone berserk. Some are new Megas. Okay, this, again, this kind of sounds, you know, more on the realistic side of things, I'm going to be honest. Like, it doesn't sound that crazy to assume, but I did have a theory that actually I don't think the map of Legends EA has anything to do with, like, those circles that those plazas. I don't think they're actually going to be arenas or anything like that, but I think those are just going to be literally locations to catch Pokemon. Like, you know, actually places filled with Pokemon. At least that's my theory. But either way, so he says, each plaza is an area ruled by a Mega Pokemon that's gone berserk. Some are new Megas. Apparently, Mega Furret is many Furrets wrapped around a tall Furret. Okay, Mega Flygon has a tail with a Trapinch head. Regional forms return. So he only mentions Mega Furret and Mega Flygon. Okay. Regional forms return. The only one so far was a Copperajah made of stone. Ooh. We need to change the name, man. It carries a fortress on its back. That actually sounds pretty cool. And I guess that's where the image from this post is from. Now, I'm gonna be real. This post is solid. It loses me at some of the other stuff there, like the minus version of Zygarde and all that. That seems a little bit... I don't know, man. It seems a little bit far-fetched. I'm not going to lie. It seems a little bit far away for me to, like, believe it. But again, I think it's worthwhile to actually talk about. So, let's move on to something else. And also, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below, guys. How do you feel about this rumor? What are your thoughts and opinions? But either way, let's move on to something slightly different. So this is a post from none else than Soul Silver Art. He's a leak analyst and somebody that I like to just, mention because he got some great theories. But basically, he's referring to a post here from Riddler Coup, which we already covered a few times, but it's basically a post where he mentions a bunch of Pokemon games that have had the inclusion of all the different mythicals so far. And then he says the following, and this is what Soul thinks. Not sure if Ku is confirming this or not, but don't forget, he knew the PLZA codename before it was revealed, which is exactly what he's referencing here. But it should be expected for us to catch every Gen 6 mythical natively by gift in PLZA, just like how we were able to catch all the Gen 4 mythicals in PLA. It just makes sense, but what about Gen 5? So I think here he's talking about the fact that if you look at actually, PLA, we're able to get Darkrai Shaman in PLA, we're also able to get Manaphy in PLA, and, the question is, will we get Victini? Will we get Genesect? Maybe not, because those two were never included. Those haven't been included anywhere yet so far, unless there is a Black and White remake coming. Then those two would fit in there, and then Diancie, Hoopa, Volcanion would be included, and those would be the perfect ones for, of course, PLZA. So that's the way I look at this. I think that would make sense, because he says Ikaku is for all three of these, and Ikaku is the code name for Legend ZA. That's the actual code name for the game, which he did know ahead of time. Now, I want to say something really important about Riddler Coup. I think that the thing is that's happened here is every insider was hearing about a Unova game that was outsourced. And I think that Legend ZA, there is a chance that this game, if it either started development really recently or the game just was kind of hidden really well, I think everybody in the leaking community was blindsided by this game. I think most people, they were able to keep this one hidden. Or it started development really recently where people just, the leakers haven't gotten the information on it. So that's why I feel like a lot of people only really got to know about this game very, very late recently. So I think Unova is still on the table for later in the year, because it is possible for them to always announce a game in June or May. That has happened before. Again, I'm just going to say this. It's happened before. Please keep that in mind. So that's where I'm at on that one. Next up, though, is a bit of an interesting theory post here from Soul, which is all about possibly Cinderace being one of the starter Pokemon. So he says, if Scorbunny actually does become one of the PLZA starters, just because Cinderace equals football equals France, I'll be outraged. As a proud Italian football fan here, there are other countries and teams more prominent and decorated than France. Well, I get it. He just wants to flex about that. But yeah, basically back to this actual post here of his, which he was talking about right here. He says, now, I've got to admit, I'd love Cinderace to actually become this sports Pokemon instead. I really like the idea of it changing from a English footballer to a Tour de France French cyclist. The transition/connection would be so perfect with a move in football called a bicycle kick, which, yes, that would actually make sense, because that's kind of what he does when he does whole pyro ball thing. And the Tour de France is the biggest, actually, I think it's Tour de France is the second biggest and most viewed sports event in the world. Number one is the World Cup, number two is Tour de France, and then it kind of goes down from there with different competitions. But actually, if I'm not mistaken, I genuinely think that football number one with World Cup, and when I say football, I'm talking about the real football, soccer, whatever you want to call it like that, but it's football, boys. And that's number one. Okay, that's number one. The most viewed event in sports is literally every time is the World Cup. It's watched by everybody in the world. And then number two is actually Tour de France, which I did not know that bicycling and cycling was that massive until I came to Belgium. And here in Belgium, everybody loves cycling, man. It's the biggest thing. And yeah, this thing gets insane amount of viewership. It is one of the biggest events, man. The second biggest, actually. So yeah, like I said, though, it is an intriguing one because it fits the idea of a regional form so much better, in my opinion. To me, Cinderace still has a very good chance of being one of the PLZA starters. What type would it be, though? Fire Electric, finally. Well, we'll have to wait and see, right? It's an interesting one to think about. But let's move on to the next thing. So here is a bit of a post he made about some of the elements of, I guess, Pokemon, Legends EA, and what the game could be all about, what time frame it could be set in. And he has a lot of it's a lot of tabs open here. So we're gonna have to go through all of this one by one. We're going to have to go all the way back to the original post because it's a long way to go. So, I already spoke about this in a previous video, and I've spoken about this, and I actually talked about this because one of you guys, my viewers, discovered this first before anyone else, which was the fact that the Synchro Machine, and this is something I already said before even the reveal of PLZA, that whatever the next game is, the actual Synchro Machine is going to be the feature that's going to be the main feature of that game. Us actually controlling the Pokemon and being the Pokemon, right? In a battle and such. And basically here he was talking about the fact that back in, X and Y, there actually was a guy hinting at, hey, would you want to become a Pokemon? Like, what if there was a way to do that? Like a scientist saying that. And then in actually Pokemon, Pokemon Indigo Disc, they literally say that, hey, guess what? Once you progress far enough in the game, you'll be able to use a machine, the Synchro Machine, that will let you see the world through the eyes of your Pokemon. While synchronized with your Pokemon, you'll be able to move with them around and have them battle with wild Pokemon, a fresh new way to play the game. It appears that this device is still a prototype. Like, why would they even say, this is on the official website, they even point out, it's a prototype. A prototype, an early version, a concept of what they want to have. And that might be a literal concept of what they want to have in Legends EA. So this is one of the first posts he made talking about this, but then he moved on and he continues on with this post right here saying, Part 3. Now, the most likely option is that PLZA will simply take place in the past, like its predecessor. So now he's talking about, when will this game take place? The future, the past, we'll see. Like its predecessor, which is already a big point. Maybe all the Legends games were meant to take place in the past, question mark. I'll provide more evidence for this, and then in part 4, do the same for the future setting. So, number 1, why it would be set in the past versus why it will be set in the future, because he has 2 different posts for this, and we're going to go through them one by one. So we're going to start with the past version first. 1. Houseman's redevelopment plan, or renovation, whatever you call it. Houseman's redevelopment of Paris is the number 1 hint here because it's such a specific reference to exactly what seems to be happening with Lumio City in PLZA. 2. The game is called Z-A, or from Z to A, meaning the game goes from the end, future, to the beginning, the past, which actually would make sense as well. A to Z, Z to A, right? 3, if we follow the progression of the teaser trailer, you'll notice that we start at the old hand-drawn blueprints, then we go to the more modern blueprints with lights, and then back to the old-style blueprints in the final scene. This might more so be a point for us traveling back and forth between the past and future at will too. 4, in the teaser, the premise of making Lumio City a place for humans and Pokemon to coexist implies that before this Pokemon and the humans were actually coexisting in the city together. Yet we know that in X and Y, humans and Pokemon do coexist in Lumio City, so this must take place before that, right? This is even more evident in other languages. I noticed first in the Italian, but also in Japanese, they speak of the cohabitation between being a dream, not yet realized. Okay. 5. The Talonflame that we follow in the trailer seems to de-evolve into a fletchling representing which could be representing that we'll be going back in time from Lumio City we know in X sub Y, which could be the case. Now, 6, the hand-drawn blueprints not only have an old-timey feel, but also the architecture is the same style of architecture from the 1800s Paris and earlier. Since these are blueprints, that means they haven't even been built in the 1800s buildings yet. 7. In the same way, the futuristic hologram-like blueprints are stylized visions of the future and what they hope Lumio City will eventually look like, especially with electricity one day. 8. The Legends title has now become a series that implies that a legend or legendary tale is central to the story of this game and series. A legend is an old story and myth passed down through generations. So yes, all of those things make sense. Again, first of all, the Houseman renovation. This is a literal thing that happened in Paris. It was the renovation of Paris, which is a vast public work program commissioned by French Emperor Napoleon III and directed by his prefect of the Seine, Georges Eugene Haussmann. So this was meant to sort of like reinvigorate and kind of like do a bunch of stuff with Paris. Like, it included demolition of medieval neighborhoods that were deemed overcrowded and unhealthy by officials at the time, the building of wide avenues, new parks and squares, the annexation of the suburbs surrounding Paris, and the construction. So annexation, they literally took areas outside of Paris's control and made them part of Paris that way, right? Also, the construction of new sewers, fountains, and aqueducts. Haussmann's work was met with fierce opposition, and he was finally dismissed by Napoleon III in 1817, but work on his projects continued until 1927. The street plan and distinctive appearance of the center of Paris today are largely the result of Haussmann's renovation. So yes, a lot of people didn't like it, but it still was done. It still happened, more or less, right? Of course, we have the de-evolving, the whole like de-evolution, right? Like, it starts, you can see on the top, it starts with the sketches. We see the future vision that actually is realized somewhat in this like 3D world, and then we go back to this like this sketch and idea of what the future is supposed to look like, right? Of course, again, it talks about a coexistence between Pokemon, a vision of a beautiful coexistence between people and Pokemon. A new adventure awaits you within Lumia City, where urban redevelopment plan is underway to shape the city into a place that belongs to both people and Pokemon. Please look forward to see yourself. Again, the Japanese version, the dream of a splendid harmony between humans and Pokemon, dreaming of the coexistence of people and Pokemon. Again, that's a non-stop constant throughout this. Next up, though, now, he says, before I move on to the futuristic points, I want to double down on these. Specifically, number 4. Many are saying that modern Lumiose in X and Y isn't a city where humans and Pokemon coexist, but we have to look at how Game Freak intended Lumiose to be, not on what the city looked like in the games due to the limitations of the hardware and Game Freak's capabilities. And here he's talking about, like, the actual, like, what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for here? My brain's not working. The concept art, right? This is a concept art of what they were imagining the city to look like, right? You can see, like, Pokemon running around. The starters are hiding and running around the city. You know, it's supposed to be a city that's, like, filled with Pokemon. Of course, when we actually walk around the city, there's only a few Pokemon. Like, you see Furfrou there, right? But, like, the ID was, like, different. But he says here, though, the following, which is, Lumiose may not have felt like a bustling city filled with people and Pokemon, but we see from this artwork, and even from seeing a few Pokemon running around in the games, that Game Freak's vision was for a modern Lumiose in X and Y to be a city where both people and Pokemon coexisted. Therefore, this dream in PLZA probably hasn't happened yet, right? Makes sense. I also wanted to harp on point number 2 a bit more here. The style of the letter Z and the dash seems to be a modern undertones to their designs, while the A has been a very big, a natural and purity vibe to it. So again, it's heavily suggesting we're going from Z to A, from the end of the alphabet back to the beginning, from modernity back to nature, right? Lastly, the biggest point people are trying to make against the hand-drawn blueprints being set in the past are the fashion and clothing of the humans, specifically the baseball-looking cap. Now, the bottom line is this is a Pokemon game, so a game set a few hundred years ago might not equal the exact date or real-world events to our real world, which is true. You have to remember, it's still a Pokemon game, so it doesn't necessarily mean they have to 100% connect it to the real life, right? If set in the past, I would say PLZA takes place around a late 1800s time frame. So, with that in mind, baseball was actually already popular around that time IRL. Maybe those caps weren't worn in Paris, but maybe the hats that looked similar to those were. And again, either way, this is the Pokemon world, so there could be another explanation of or a mixture of in real-life time frames, which is true as well. Moving on, here is the final post that he made. So, also, has anyone noticed the sound design of PLZA's title reveal? Turn sound on. Legends has a Hisui old Japanese sound effect. The Z maybe sounds like something shooting. The dash is an insane robot and future sound. Also, the static sound begins in the background. So let's actually pause the background music and let's increase the sound here of the output. So you guys can actually hear the sound from this. So if you listen to the trailer... There you go. So that's like what it sounds like, right? That's the sound. Now, if we actually go and listen to what he said here now, right? So, Legends has a Hisui, an old Japanese sound effect, right? So, that's the actual Pokemon Legends logo when that fades in, which makes sense, because if you look at that logo, if you look at the Legends logo, that logo itself looks more old, right? The colors on it look like an old, like, torn page almost. Like, the kind of beige color you'd expect of, like, an old piece of paper. Versus the Z and A, which look way more futuristic. And like it says here, the Z maybe sounds like something shooting. The dash is an insane robot and future sound. Also, a static sound begins in the background. The A is a pure, clean sound. And finally, the static sound gets louder, lasts the longest, and then eventually fades out. But I also left a transition screen in this video to show what looking like old-time film deteriorating or ending with a Zygarde green color, which is true. In the beginning here, you'll see, like, it's like the deterioration, like a film grain, like, you know, literally like the film breaking down, like old film breaking down from when it's like being taken out, like it used to be in those like old big round, tubes. And he says, I think this is all totally intentional. It probably will mean a lot in hindsight. All I think about is going from past to the future or vice versa, especially because of the Legends title being an old Japanese sound. But also, that dash sound is wild. Or maybe this is all has to do with the firing of the ultimate weapon, with the static mimicking the fallout of a weapon's destruction. Or maybe it's Zygarde using its signature move. maybe you have better ideas. But yeah, that's pretty much where he ends off his theory on this one. So let's move on to something else. And again, I would love to know you guys, future, past, which side are you on? What do you think is going to be happening? Let me know. I'd love to know your guys' theories and all that, because there's a lot of stuff here, and it's kind of hard to know exactly what it might be. Now, here is actually a really cool post, which was made by Working Classicists, which was shared by Soul. Says, what's it said about this is that hundreds of years from now, Pokemon themselves might become historical artifacts. And here we can see a really cool thread from Working Classicists. Pokemon as ancient historical artifacts, a thread. Each post will have a link to more information. So here, Poliwhirl is the Rosuklas vase. He swirls, so kind of a similar design. Psyduck, the Attic red figure shard. Stress beyond belief. Head in hands. You can see right there. Same thing here. You have, Tauros, a Cypriot terracotta bowl. That could be what it's based on in terms of design, because it's got a very similar design. Entei, the Macamillion Arbylos, powerful, iconic, and intimidating. Lechonk, of course, it could be this. Tunisian red slipwear Ascos, Roman wine skin, or pig with a purpose. Fletchling, a Greek Ficalura-style amphora. Just a Boyd in search of a Voim. Which, again, yeah, there's a lot of these. Again, there's a lot of these you can make connections to, which are really cool. I actually think this post is really epic. And shout out to Working Classes for actually making this. I'm going to be saving this one for future reference. But, yeah, kind of a cool one nonetheless. I thought I would just share this with you guys. Moving on, there's another post by Soul who says that there's something interesting we need to talk about. And he actually referring to a post here by Blaze Incineroar, who said the following, which was actually a quote tweet to Ku, who made a tweet a while back with a, black and white dragon. But here's what this is about. If by June we get the announcement for black and white remakes and no ZA starters yet, some people will start to say Snivy can't be a starter in ZA because we're getting Gen 5 remakes this year. Mark my words. And then Soul Silver says that this is really good of a point. If there are black and white remakes later in 2024, would that make you personally count out Snivy as a potential PLZA starter? Because remember, the theory right now is that Torchic, Snivy, and Piplup, or was it Torchic? Torchic, Snivy, and Piplup are the starters we might be getting because they were in the Indigo Disc trailer, seemingly matched up together with the starters from Legends Arceus. So that's the theory. But for me, obviously, doesn't because I've been fully expecting Black and White remakes this whole time, and Superior would get a Mega Evolution or regional form. But then again, it does seem that Game Freak doesn't like to give us the same starters back to back. So who knows? We'll have to wait and see. And at this point, just give the Galar starters a second run in the spotlight. Honestly, why not? But yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts and opinions on this one too. Let me know down below. Moving on, though, there is an interesting thing. So this was posted by PokeTimes, which is an official account, and it's basically just sorry if that was really loud just now. But basically, it's Tierno, I forget his name, I think his name is Tierno, dancing with Irida and Adaman, jeez. And it's really weird that they're showing him off, but that could imply, this could be a little hint, because this account does give hints, by the way. This PokeTimes account, definitely follow it, because it does give hints, and it has like 1.8 million followers, but they do give hints sometimes. And the fact that they have Adaman and Irida with this character might imply that we might see Tierno's, one of Tierno's, ancestors showing up in this game. Also, I hate this video, by the way. I don't like seeing them dance. It makes me annoyed for some reason. I don't know why, but it pisses me off. But yeah, so he's saying it's possible that his ancestor might be showing up, which, speaking of which, there are other characters that might show up as ancestors. Like one of them, for example, could be Drasna. Her ancestor and descendant could be a really good character to connect PLA to PLZA due to her living in and becoming a prominent trainer in Kalos while her family was from Sinnoh, and then you can connect that to the Sinnoh legendaries, which, yes, that would make total sense. Since she's also a Dragon-type specialist, it would be really fun if they could tie in some kind of Dragon trainer lineage story with Hassel, Drayton, and Drayton 2, a good side quest, in my opinion. So yeah, it could be a cool idea to actually match all those guys together. Then, of course, I think we already spoke about this. Then, final thing I want to show off, speaking of, ancestors, remember, we already had, what's her name? I forget her freaking name now. We had Perrin, right? We had Perrin as a character, which was a literal, descendant of Adamant in Scarlet and Violet. So we can pretty much assume that that's going to happen again. Also, shout out to El Chico Eevee for the epic 3D art. This looks munto bene. Such a sick way to recreate the concept art, in my opinion. But ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think about everything in the comment section down below, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out, and bye-bye, ladies and gentlemen.